Hey everybody, Matt here for AVC and welcome back to the shop. Today I have a special design challenge video for you. I'm going to be giving one raw overhead cabinet to everybody in the shop, including myself, and asking them to come up with a unique way to finish these out. Let's check in with the guys and see what they have planned.
Hey, I'm Spencer. Today for the cabinet challenge, I'm actually going to be using paint, shock cord, and I'm going to be using a torch and some bicycle cogs to finish out my cabinet. The reason I'm going with paint is because it's relatively inexpensive. It's really approachable for a DIYer. Most people, understand how paint works, and really all you need is some sandpaper, masking tape, and some way to apply it with a roller brush or spray. And then it can also easily be touched up, and it can easily be changed in the future if you ever need to change it, or get tired of the color, or your kids scuff it or whatever. And then the shock cord, the reason I'm using that is because it's easy access to whatever you have in the cabinets, and it's also a space saver. With doors, obviously them flipping up and flipping down takes up space, and I've always kind of been intrigued by the shock cord idea, and I want to try it out.
Hey, I'm Stuart. Today I'm going to be using polyurethane and laminated fabric for my cabinet design challenge. The polyurethane, I just like the natural grain of the wood, so I like to show that off. And with the fabric, we've done one fabric overhead for another customer, and I just thought it was an interesting challenge. I haven't done another one, so I want to give it a try.
Hey, I'm Ian. My finish I'm going to choose is a bedline interior and exterior and a laminated door. The bedliner is going to match with the utility cabinets that we typically have in the van as well. With its durable finish, it'll be able to stand up to a little bit more brutality that happens when camping.
I'm Matt and I'm going to be finishing my cabinet with laminates, and we're going to be putting laminate inside and out. I like high pressure laminate because it's really easy to clean. There's a ton of different styles, so I can really customize that cabinet any way I would want. And it's really, really durable. That hard finish is resistant to all sorts of scratches, impacts, everything like that. So to me, it's a really great way to finish my cabinets. All right, everybody, in front of you is one complete raw overhead cabinet. You have until the end of the day to finish this and be ready to present them. 3, 2, 1, go! So I'm going to be laminating my cabinets inside and out. Because I'm going to be laminating them, I'm going to have to use a trim bit for that. So if we look at the edge of the cabinet here and the thickness, the pocket isn't going to allow this flush trim bit to fit inside, so I'm going to have to modify it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grind the tip off of this bit so that I can get it inside the pockets and give me a clean, flush look.
Oh, I am just nailing the cabinet together since we have less time to let the glue dry.
All right, so I've got all of the interior sides of the cabinet laid face up, and I have all of these bicycle cogs, single speed cogs, some track cogs, and some other things. And also found this very early test cut of our logo, which looks kind of janky, but it's a little bit punk rock. So I'm going to try to incorporate that somehow. But I'm going to actually be using a torch to lay out all these pieces, and then I'm going to torch over top of them to leave kind of a charred finish, and then I'm going to poly coat. And it's all going to be, like I said, the inside of the cabinet. So the inside of the cabinet will be super busy, and then the outside face is just going to be black. So it'll be clean on the outside, kind of busier on the inside, and yeah, let's see how it turns out.
Matt, you having some issues?
Yes, this thing is, these bits are incredibly hard. Flapidus didn't touch it. The cutoff wheel is barely making a dent. So we'll try the bench grinder.
I used brad nails to connect most of the cabinet together. Right now, I'm using clamps just on this front face. I didn't want to put any nails going into the front face because I may want to leave it raw. So I'm clamping that instead.
Okay, so I laid all these out. This is the first one, so we'll see how it turns out. This is the back of the cabinet. So I'm going to put the logo in the very back of the cabinet, so it'll be subtle, but you can see it when you're looking into the cabinet. So yeah, it's some little bleed over. It must be because this was raised a bit and the letters are really close together, but maybe we can figure out a way to kind of touch that up somehow. But yeah, I think it's actually a little darker than I expected it was going to be. So the inside of the cabinet is going to be a little darker than I thought, but I think it's cool. Then we'll poly coat over the top of it just to seal it, and then yeah.
So I just marked my cabinet door front where I'll be wrapping it with fabric. That way I don't accidentally spray the wrong side of the poly coat. So I have my cabinet assembled here. I'm getting ready to start spraying it with finish. Before I do that, I want to blow it off to make sure that I have all of the dust off there so it takes a really nice finish. Hey, sorry for the noise, guys. The air compressor's going. I've got my cabinet assembled here, feeling pretty good about that. First one done.
I actually have my cabinet assembled. I'm letting the glue dry a little bit while Stuart sprays his polyurethane. I'm gonna get my laminate ready for gluing down onto the door surface.
So I have my modified bit. It's in my trim router, and I think this is gonna work just right. So it looks like I can get into all these pockets and get a nice flush cut to all my laminates. So that's good. But one thing about our overhead cabinets is they come pre-positioned for all the hardware. So the side plates of the overhead are positioned so our lifting hinges can just key right in here. And then the doors are also keyed the same way. And after I laminate this, I'm gonna lose those pockets. So what I'm gonna do is make a little stencil so that I can find those after I'm done laminating. So to do that, I'm just gonna take a regular 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I'm gonna line it up with the top of the pocket and the front of the cabinet section here. Okay, and then I'm just gonna take my pencil, and using the other one, I can find out kind of where it is, but I can see them right here. I'm just gonna do a quick rubbing. And this way I can see those holes again, and that way I'll be able to find them. While I'm here, I'm gonna label up, and I'm gonna label front, and I'm just gonna draw arrows, and then put a little 0 mark in the corner, so that I can find these after I'm done laminating.
So I'm gonna do the other side, but because the pattern is kind of so random and busy, I think it actually mates up pretty well. It looks kind of cool. So this is gonna be the inside of the cabinet.
Right, now I am just doing a rough trim on some laminate. I'm gonna laminate the inside of my cabinets orange. So I laid out all the pieces here on the table, and then just got a quick measurement on my laminate. And I'm just gonna cut the laminate down here. I'm gonna spray everything, I'll put it onto this, and then I'll cut them out to the side.
It's like a fine balance between applying enough torch to where you get some of the details, but not doing it so much that it gets sort of blown out, like right here, like I lost some of the detail. And then right here I went a little too light. So it's a little trickier than I thought it was gonna be actually. I'm kind of having second thoughts about the black paint on the outside though, because this turned out, like I said, a little darker than I thought.
Alrighty, I took all my pieces and parts of my cabinet, I laid them on my laminate, and then I traced out all those shapes, so I just have a rough cut for each piece and part. They're a lot easier to laminate one at a time rather than putting everything onto the sheet at once. Plus, it's a little bit more efficient use of material. So now I'm just kind of cutting them up with a knife because it's really simple, and then I can get spraying and laminating. Everybody else is a little bit further along than I am because I have to do all the prep work first, then I assemble the cabinet at the end. Once I assemble it, it's gonna be done. I won't have any last finishing to do, so that'll be really nice. I really like using laminate because it's easy to clean, it's really durable, but you have to know what you're doing, so a little bit of practice is good, and I'll start with laminating the inside pieces first, so that the outside pieces look the best.
Trying to get ready to spray my bed liner on the interior of the cabinet, and then work on doing the exterior of it.
So what I'm gonna do now, I think I am gonna actually paint the face of this black. So I want the face to be black, but I want the end grain of the wood, so on the outsides and around the frame of where the door would be, just to be this raw exposed edge. So I'm gonna mask off these inside edges and outside edges, and then I'm gonna spray the face black. And then I think we're gonna get to poly coating. So we're gonna poly coat all these and then assemble.
Now I am laying out the laminates. I'm just kind of planning how I'm going to laminate all the outsides now. I pre-cut everything to laminate the insides of the cabinet. Now I'm laying it over the top of the outside laminate. I'm just going to make sure I have enough and that everything is oriented correctly. The laminate I'm using today doesn't have a grain. I don't have to worry too much about having them facing one direction or another. Just use the material efficiently.
I wanted something that was going to contrast with the birch, but that was also going to have like a natural look. So I thought, green and wood grain. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with like the general coat for the top and the back and the sides. I'll do one more coat on the front, on the inside, on the bottom, basically on what's going to show.
So we're going to be poly coating the 3 surfaces that we hit with the torch to kind of seal it in, because currently if you wipe your hand across it, it's got some kind of ash and soot. And then the bottom and top, in an effort to kind of lighten up the inside of the cabinet, we're going to leave raw.
Our contact cement has dried, so we are ready to apply. Just going to line my parts up, triple check, because we only get one shot at this. glued on there. Then I'm gonna roll it out. And we're ready to start trimming. All of my interiors have been laminated, and I'm trimming the last couple pieces of the interiors now. The cutoff bit worked really, really well. Everything looks perfect, so it looks like it just came off of our CNC router, which is fantastic. Then I'm gonna flip them all over. We're gonna laminate the outsides, trim those, and then we're ready to assemble.
So I'm just finishing the edges here. This is synthetic fabric, so I can kind of melt it with the torch.
I am applying the adhesive to put the laminate on, and I wanted to use a different adhesive than we normally do here in the shop because I wanted to be a little more DIY friendly. So I went to my local hardware store and I picked up this Weldwood. It's a brush-on or roll-on contact cement, so it's super easy to work with. It's extremely flammable, so make sure you're smart about how and where you're applying it. But I just have a little roller here, and we'll get some on our roller, and we'll apply to our laminates. Okay, we just want a nice, even, thin film on here. And we're gonna let that dry for 20 minutes. Once both sides are dry, we're gonna apply this to both sides of our laminate and the cabinet. So this is a really easy way to do laminating at home, and we don't have to deal with aerosol overspray. So if we're doing something like a cabinet, it can actually be a little advantageous. Alrighty, I just wanted to show everybody how I'm going to use that rubbing that I made before I coated everything. So I'm just lining up the edges of my paper to my cabinet. I'm using this little center punch, and I put that right in the middle of my hole and just punch those locations. Now that I have those two punched, I can flip that sheet over, line up the same thing to the edge up here, and use those same points. Punch those out, and now I have registration marks again for my hinges. Since these points specifically on the sides of the cabinet have a little thickness on the hinge that hinge actually lines up into, I'm gonna have to take something like this step bit and open these up again so that my hinge has a little pocket to fall into. And as you can see, they're centered nicely, ready to go. Now that all my laminates are installed, trimmed, and ready to go, the last step before I start my assembly is going to be sanding all of my edges. That way I don't have any little burrs, anything like that. I want all the pieces nice and smooth. It's gonna make assembly go much, much easier.
Finished with spraying bed liner. I'm just touching up. There was a little bit of gray that got into blue that I wasn't quite wanting there. So with some leftover bed liner, I'm just touching up the spots that I want to keep blue.
All right, so all the poly and paint dried. We went ahead and peeled off all of the masking tape on the face. So now we're almost ready to assemble, but because I'm gonna be foregoing the door, we're gonna be using the shock cord and eyelets to make a lattice work across the face where the door would be, just to keep stuff from falling out. It's kind of an idea I've always wanted to try, so we're gonna use this outlet to give it a shot. So yeah, we're gonna get to assembly. We've got our clamps, our glue, and hopefully we have a assembled cabinet here pretty soon. So I got all the little eyelets screwed in. These are gonna be towards the front of the cabinet, and then the face is obviously gonna be on the front, and then these lower anchor points are gonna be below the bottom lip, so that I can kind of shoestring through all of these guys, and then when I actually tie it off, it'll be below the surface, so it'll be a nice clean look. You won't see any knots or anything like that. So.
Well, the cabinets are all done and they're looking great. Let's take a look at each cabinet and review the choices they made. First, we're gonna take a look at Stuart's overhead cabinet. Stuart really wanted to bring out the natural beauty of the birch that we make these cabinets from, so he chose to use just like a natural finish on everything that he could. He first assembled the cabinet, then he sprayed the entire thing with a poly, and then the only spot he changed that finish was he did a fabric coating on the front of the door, just to kind of tie in with the rest of the van interior. I think using a natural finish like this is a really fantastic way to go. It's also going to be one of the easier ways to assemble and finish your cabinets, because you can assemble the entire thing raw and then do the finishes last. Taking a look inside, I think this is a great cabinet. All right, here we have Ian's cabinet. Ian also did a complete assembly first, so he put the entire cabinet together, and then he finished with our Raptor liner bed liner. So we did a custom dark gray exterior. If we take a look inside, he did like a really cool aquamarine color inside, so it's a nice bright interior. It's gonna be really easy to clean, very durable finish, which is really nice. And then he opted for a custom laminate on the faceplate of the door. This is a mountain scene, which is a really cool grayscale cabinet, has some nice artistic intrigue. And then he did a T-molding around the outside of the door just to finish it off and make it look completely finished. Here we have Spencer's cabinet. Spencer opted to remove the door and hinge, so he has more of an open cubby style, which is really cool, especially the way that he finished his. So he did just a paint finish on the front to set it apart from the rest. He did some bike gears inside and did a wood burning method. It's a little bit more personal touch this way, so it kind of speaks to him and the activities he likes to do. And then in lieu of the door, he did these elastic bands. So you can use it like a cubby, stuff his things inside, and get easy access to them. I think it's a really great, simple option. It's pretty sweet. And last up is my overhead cabinet. I chose to do high pressure laminate on the inside and outside of this cabinet, mostly because this is the way that we cut our cabinets here in-house. So we pre-laminate the material here at the shop and then cut it on our CNC. And I wanted to show people that you can get the exact same kind of finish at home by doing all this stuff by hand. So I did a white laminate on the outside. I did this kind of cool honeycomb pattern on the front of the door. And then on the inside, I have a nice bright orange. I love having a bright interior to my cabinets because it's easy to find things inside. High pressure laminate is also really nice because it's easy to clean. And those are the cabinets. Now it's up to you. Down below we have a poll so you can let us know which one was your favorite finish.